All right, Shalom, Shalom, Akim. I want to first start off by giving all the glory, honor, and praises to the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai, Ba'ashim Rakakadash. I want to give double honors to my elders and apostles at Great Millstone, who rule well and teach well. Peace and salutation unto the Lord's elect. This is the brother Yahweh. And a quick little lesson to you through the Spirit. Lord willing, I pray you find this message edifying and exhorting. So, I was thinking earlier today, this old childhood book that I used to read called The Hare and the Tortoise, or The Tortoise and the Hare. And, the summary of the book was how the tortoise, he was slow and he didn't have the same abilities as, the hare was quick. But the hare was prideful, boastful, and lazy. And ultimately, the tortoise ended up winning because he was enduring. Like he endured and he continued to move forward and was persistent, as the hare got slothful and lazy. And we can't be like this on this walk. We got to do the work and we got to be diligent. And I wanted to bring a couple of precepts to back this up. But thinking about that makes me think of the ant, And actually, let me see if I could find it because I had it a little bit before. But I believe... Yeah, okay, Proverbs 6:6, go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. So, the tortoise and the ant, they're considered to be small, creatures. Even like the bee is small but produces sweet things. And just like the ant, he's small but he works diligently. He's a hard worker. He continues to be persistent. And when that season comes, where he's short on food, he prepared. And that same thing applies to us. We prepare now so that when these times come, we're going to be founded on a rock and we're going to have everything that we need. We can't take advantage of the blessings that we have right now to learn this word, continue to grow. We have the elders and apostles at Great Millstone who are always coming out with edifying lessons, along with the bishops and elders that are always pushing out edifying and exhorting videos. And we can't take advantage of that. We got to continue to learn under them, as well as studying to show thyself approved unto a workman, and continue to grow before the famine of the word takes place, because there's going to be a time where YouTube's not going to be, pushing out these videos anymore. We got to prepare now. We got to prepare now. So it also continues to say, let me see if I could find it. Yeah, this is Proverbs 10:4. He that becometh poor, that dealeth with the slack hand, but the hand of the diligent shall be maketh rich. So if you're diligent, you're going to be rich in knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. But that's poor, it's just slacking, it's just slumbering all day. You're nothing but a fool. And in these times to come, and times are ramping up, you see what's going on in Israel right now. The mark of the beast is just around the corner. You cannot be slack. You can't be slumbering. You can't be going back to the world. You can't drop the plow. You just can't do that. It's just not the time for it. You got to continue to keep pushing forward, marching forward, and enduring like a good soldier. And what does it talk about? Endure as a good soldier. And I have some precepts already lined up, but others are going to come to the Spirit, and that's what it's going to be. We're just going to bring them out. But this is in 2 Timothy 2:3. Thou therefore endure hardness as a good soldier of Yahweh Shai HaMashiach. So you're enduring hardness. You're continuously persisting and moving forward. And it says, no man that warreth entangleth himself with the affairs of this life, that he may please him that chosen him to be a soldier. So we're supposed to please Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai. He is the one that can ultimately give us the rewards at the end of the day. He has the power to create it and destroy. So why are we putting so much care in our family members? Why are we putting so much care in our woman? Of course we have to carry out the duties while we're here, but that shouldn't be the first and main priority. Or pleasing your fucking boss, man. It's a lakia for speaking that way, but it's the truth. You have to have your priorities set first and foremost in the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai. Seek him early. It says seek wisdom early. Wisdom is the principal understanding. Therefore, get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. And exalt her, and she shall promote thee, and she shall bring thee to honor when thou dost embrace her. So, spending that time with Yahweh Shemel Shai, seeking him early, creating that fine tune, that melody for the day. That's what's gonna keep us on point. That's what's gonna keep us obedient, diligent, focused. You're focused, you're sober, you're vigilant. You're not focused on what your woman is arguing about and yapping about, or some dumb Edomite boss, or a friend in the world or whatever. Which in fact you shouldn't even be really around. You shouldn't be unequally yoked, to begin with. But sometimes we have family members and people around us. It is what it is. But you gotta put the Lord first and foremost. Because if we're called to be a soldier, He chose us. It says many are called, but few are chosen. So we have to be one of those people that are chosen and that endure to the very end. Because what does it say? He that endureth to the end. It's the book of Matthew 24:13. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. So we have to go out and continue to do these videos, go out on the highways and byways, tell our fellow people, our Israelites, the 12 tribes, of the spirit and prophecy of Yahweh Shemel Shai, because that's when the end's gonna come. And if we continue to do that, you're gonna wake up the elect and the people that are meant to hear it. Because at the end of the day, the Lord's only dealing with the remnant of people. He's not dealing with everybody. These Christian churches, they teach that everybody can be saved. So God so loved the world, but He wasn't talking about every single nation. He was talking about the Israelites. But it's our duty to go out and to preach His gospel and to compel those to come in. What does it say? Go out on the highways and hedges. This is the book of Luke 14:23. And the Lord saith unto the servant, Go out onto the highways and hedges and compel them to come in, that my house may be filled. So, and then it continues to say, For I say unto you that none of those men which were bidden shall taste of my supper. So we have to go out and, compel those to come in that are meant to hear this message. How are we going to do that? By doing the work, by being diligent, by enduring, by using the talents that the Lord gave us to the best of our abilities. Because we can't be like that servant that hid his talents. Talks about that in the book of Matthew chapter 25. And I'm going to read it out. It says, For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling unto a far country, who hath called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, and to another 2, and to another 1, to every man according to his several ability, and straightway took his journey. Then he that hath received 5 talents went and traded them the same, and made them other 5 talents. And likewise he that had received 2 had also gained another 2. So that one of those servants, he multiplied his talents. It continues to say, But that he that had received 1 went and digged it into the earth and hid his Lord's money. After a long time the Lord of those servants cometh and reckoneth with them. And so he that hath received 5 talents came and brought another 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou hast delivered unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained beside them 5 talents more. And his Lord said unto them, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things, and I will make thee a ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. He that hath also received 2 talents came and said, Lord, thou hast delivered unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained another 2 talents beside them. His Lord said unto him, Well done, my good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I shall make thee a ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. Then he hath received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew thee, thou art a hard man, reaping where thou hast not sown, and gathering where thou hast not strawed. And I was afraid, and went and hid thy talent in the earth where thou hast had that where hast that is thine. And his Lord answered unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knewest I had reaped where I had sowed not, and gathered where I have not strawed. And it basically, that's talking about the servant. He was foolish. He hid his talents in a napkin. He hid his talents underground. He didn't multiply them. He didn't take advantage of the blessings that were given to him. And that same thing goes for those people out there that know that they're Israelites, they're able-bodied men, and they don't want to do anything. They just want to shalom on comment boards, and they just want to con everywhere, and they're not doing any work. Meanwhile, they're the ones that want to talk the most shit. And this is not with everybody, but there are some people out there that are like that. And ultimately, if you're sincere, you have to go out and do the work. It's a duty. And what does it talk about? Living and acceptable. This precept right here comes to mind if it can pull up. Romans 12:1. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of Yahweh, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto Yahweh, which is your reasonable service. So that's a reasonable service. The fact that the Lord brought us here, he gave us life, he gave us breath, he gave us a spirit and understanding of these prophecies and the power of his true name, the name Yahweh, and his only begotten son, Yahweh Shai. Okay, with that being said, we got to go out and do the work. It's a reasonable service. That's the least we could do, honestly. What are we going to do? Just be silent about it and not tell anybody? What good is that? How are we going to wake up the hopeful elect that way, honestly? Because there are many scattered across the four corners of this earth that still need to hear this message. They need to hear about the mark of the beast. They might not understand. They might be an Israelite, but that was brought into a congregation that was speaking false doctrine. Or they might be in the Christian church and just waiting to hear the truth. They're craving it. And you could be one of those people that tell them, but you don't, because you're slothful and you're lazy. And then the blood comes on your hands. Remember that. Let's bring that out, actually. Because that comes to my mind too when you want to be hiding your talents. You're not giving fruit to anybody. You're just a fruitless tree. This is Ezekiel. This is let me see. This is Ezekiel 3:1-8. When I say unto the wicked, thou shalt surely die, and shalt giveth him not warning, nor speaketh and warn the wicked from his wicked way to save his life, the same wicked man shall die in his iniquity, but the blood will I require at thine hand. So the blood's on your hands ultimately when you choose not to say things when they need to be said. Obviously, we're not saying to preach to everybody. Not everybody's going to understand, but there are people out there that you could preach to. And even, if you're doing the work in YouTube, Lord willing, it's meant to go to the ears and eyes of those that the eyes that need to see and the ears that need to hear, and you did your part, and you're a tree that that individual that hears the message, they might turn out to be a big strong tree that's deeply rooted and firm, a firm foundation, and then that tree ends up dropping fruit for others to take, and then therefore they produce their own seeds. What does it talk about? The fruit tree, the parable of the seed. I'm going to bring this out too if I could find it. Yeah, this is the book of Matthew 13:1-23. In the same way, Yahweh Shai went out to the house and sat by the seaside, and the great multitudes were gathered together unto him, so that they went on to the ship and sat, and the whole multitude stood on the shore. And he spake of many things unto them in parables, saying, Behold, a sower went forth to sow. And when he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls came and devoured them up. Some fell upon the stony places, where they had not had much such earth, forthwith and sprung up, because they had no deepness of earth. And when the sun was up, They were scorched because they had no root, and they withered away. And some fell among the thorns, and thorns sprung up and choked them. But the others fell onto good ground and brought forth fruit, some 100-fold, some 60-fold, and some 30-fold. Who hath the ears to hear, let him hear. So when you're going out and you're planting seeds, not every seed's going to sprout, but there's going to be those very few seeds that end up sprouting and they become healthy. And that's because of the work. You are a vessel, you are a mouthpiece to preach onto them and to edify them, and you help them grow. And you save their life and you save their soul. And it's the same thing when we fish. We cast in a net. We're gonna try to look for a good fish. Among there, we might have some individuals, on some fish that come up that are not desirable, or we might get crap in the net, and that is what it is. But we gotta try to get those healthy fish, and that same thing applies to sowing seeds in people. But that only comes by you doing your part, you doing the work, and being diligent and being faithful. Having that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It's faith to go out and to do videos, and to you have time on your hands, and instead of doing other things and bullshitting, you decide to do a video, or you decide to edify, or you sharpen iron with your fellow Akim, you break bread with them. That takes faith. Because you have to have belief in the Lord Yahweh by Shema Shai, and He sees that. He sees your efforts. What does it say? The Lord's eyes are 10,000 times brighter than the sun. It's the book of Ecclesiasticus 23:19. Such a man only feareth the eyes of men, and knoweth not the eyes of the Lord are 10,000 times brighter than the sun, beholding all the ways of men, and considering thou most secret part. So He sees absolutely everything. He knows your intentions, your thoughts, your desires, and He's the one that can ultimately give it to you at the end of the day. No man can do that. So why are you putting trust in man? Why are you putting trust in this carnal world that only fades away? Vain. This place is vain. It says vanity of vanities. The preacher saith all is vanity. But why not put that effort in now? Why not do the work for the Lord as a good soldier if He called you and He chose you, before this time ends? It's just stuff to meditate about, It's the most important thing. Most important thing. This is the book of 1 Corinthians 15 and 58. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. For as much ye know that your labor is not vain in the Lord. So, if you're working for the Lord, you're doing all this work, you're saying, Lord, what's going on? Am I being seen? Like I said, the Lord's eyes are 10,000 times brighter than the sun. The scriptures say that. So He sees everything. It's not going to be in vain. If you're doing this in sincerity and charity, it's not going to be in vain. These Christians, though, these pastors, they're doing it in vain. They're doing it to get money. They're doing it to be seen by men. They're doing it to have people clap for them. But, they had their reward. The men see it. We're not doing it for men. We're not doing it for the eyes of other people. Most of the time, we're scoffed at, we're mocked at, we're looked at as clowns because, we're speaking that's not of the world. We're speaking on a different frequency. But the Lord sees it all, and he's pleased if we're doing things in the right way, and that if we endure until the end, until the very end, He is pleased. But that's what it comes down to, being steadfast, unmovable, okay? Like a firm foundation, like I mentioned before, like the scriptures mentioned, being that firm foundation, fortress, nothing's going to sway you away, not the doctrines, not the false doctrines. You're able to have discernment to see what's right from wrong. Ultimately, which is another gift of the Lord, of the Spirit. And you're always abounding in the work. You're giving your body up as a living sacrifice. You're not being a sluggard. You're doing the work. You're a part of this. And the Lord loves that at the end of the day. He really does. And He sees it. And He got your back. Let's see. This is the book of Proverbs 11 and 27. He that diligently seeketh good prosureth favor, but he that seeketh mischief, it shall come unto him. So if you're seeking good, you're going to have favor. But if you're seeking mischief, if you're a wicked ass 2/3, you're trying to get over your brother, you're trying to just knock him out, try to always get ahead of him, then it's gonna come on to you. The Lord's gonna judge you for it ultimately. And like I mentioned before in the other videos, me and the brother Barack posted, the brother Salah, this isn't a competition. We're not trying to beat our fellow brothers. We're not supposed to one up them. It ain't about that. All these sports, all these careers in this vain world, jobs, everybody's trying to get up over each other in a position, get each other fired. When you come into this ministry, it's not about that. You're edifying, you're building up one another, you're all in this together, you're a part of one body. If you're following the same doctrine, you're all in one body, and you're supposed to feed the flock. You're supposed to sharpen iron. You're supposed to pour into one another's cup. Okay? And that comes with being diligent. Ultimately, you're diligent. You care about your fellow brothers. You want them to be saved. You want them to be under the Psalms 91 shelter. From when that time comes, they're in that firm shelter. And you're preparing with them like the ant. Like the ant, you're storing up. You're learning these precepts. You're meditating. You're breaking bread. You're marinating on these scriptures, like a living water. You're building one another up. You're not, hiding wisdom from them. Don't be like that, because the people that do that, they're moving in a way of pride, and the Lord, He'll take that wisdom away, just as He gave it to you. Like I said, He has the power to create and destroy. It talks about that in the scriptures, I believe, in the book of Deuteronomy. It's the book of Philippians 3:14. I press towards a mark for the prize of the high calling of Yahweh and Hamashiach Yahushai. Let us therefore, as many be perfect, be thus minded, and in anything be otherwise minded. Yahweh shall reveal even this unto you. Nevertheless, whereunto we have already attained, let us walk in the same rule, let us mind the same thing. So, a dry mouth, Salakiakim. But Philippians 14, we're pressing towards that mark. We're looking for the prize, for the reward at the end of the day. The Lord has many rewards stored up for us. It says, I've prepared mansions upon mansions. It talks about in the book of John. What does it say? Mansions upon mansions. In my Father's house there are many mansions. There are many mansions. If it were not unto so, if it were not so, I would have told you so. I go to prepare a place for you. John 14:2. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. So going back to what I was saying before, that high prize, the everlasting riches of the kingdom. I mean, just itself, you're going to be immortal. You're going to live on forever. You're not going to be destroyed like these 2/3. And we want those rewards. The Lord promised this to us. We have to be diligent. We got to do the work. We got to continue to push in faith. That's what this is all about. And we got to help our brothers. Let's see. I believe I mentioned this before, but if not, I'm going to repeat it again. Proverbs 13:4. The soul of the sluggard desireth and hath nothing, but the soul of the diligent shall be made fat. So you're gonna be taken care of. The Lord's gonna pour into you. He's gonna fill your cup up. How are you gonna do that? By being in this word, meditating. And it says, study to show thyself approved, a workman unto Yahweh, that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of the truth. But shun profane and vain babblings, for they will increase unto more ungodliness. So we don't want to be with the unequally yoked. We don't want to be meddling ourselves in bullshit, matters that don't pertain to us, and gossiping, and focus on these things of the world that are vain. And not only that, when it talks about profane and vain babblings, it talks about speaking false doctrines. We don't want to be around these, Israelites that are speaking false doctrines. They're speaking about the wrong names. They're breaking on the mark wrong. Like IUIC, breaking down the mark of the beast wrong, and other congregations as well. We got to shun those. We got to study to show thyself approved as a workman. Don't be ashamed. You got to be firm in foundation. You got to be a soldier. A soldier is not ashamed. He's ready to fight. He has his loins girded, his feet planted, and he's dividing the word rightly. The truth. That truth is in the scriptures. That correct doctrine, This is the book of Ecclesiasticus 9 and 10. Whatsoever thou hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. For there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave, whither thou goest. So while you're here, in this on these fleshly bodies that you've been given, you only have so much time, and tomorrow's not promised. Akim Akwat, anything can happen to you. If you take advantage of the blessings of the Lord, He could take it away from you. I mean, you could wake up, you could die in your sleep. You get hit by a car tomorrow. That's why you can't take this for granted. You got to take full advantage of this to the last day that you're here. So whatever you find, whatever talents you have, whether it be the understanding the prophecies, whether it be, breaking down certain things like the mark of the beast, even if it's repetition, if you're very talented in that subject, in that realm, don't be afraid to continue to pour out and your wisdom and your understanding to feed the flock. And you might have talents with the herbs, with helping, the fellow brothers and sisters heal themselves. They were tainted by, Esau's pharmakia, or all these crappy ingredients that he gives us with 30, 40 ingredients in cereal. Maybe a little bit more about that, and you can give, alternatives, the holistic care. You could even be praying fervently for the fellow Akim, or even giving alms. And alms doesn't have to be money. And the Lord sees that. Like, His eyes are 10,000 times brighter than the sun, so He sees when you're helping out brothers in secret, not in public where everybody else sees. Anything, you're doing work. You're doing work while you're here. You're staying diligent, and you're taking full advantage. So we gotta do that. We gotta be like the ant. We gotta be like the bee. Even though we're small in this nature, while we're here, we might be small. We might have Esau in full control, but that's only for a matter of time. And then what does it say? He who humbles himself will be exalted. So we got to be humble. That's ultimately what it's about. We got to be humble. Matthew 23 and 12, and whoever shall exalt himself shall be abased, and he that humbled himself shall be exalted. But woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees and hypocrites, for ye shut up the kingdom against heaven, against men, and for ye neither go in themselves, neither ye suffer them that are entering to go in. So you can't be like one of these Pharisees, a hypocrite, that just wants to muzzle the ox. You want to, muzzle people from spreading the truth and the word. Don't be like them. They're hypocrites. You got to do the work in humbleness, and you got to feed the flock. Very imperative. And this is the last precept I wanted to bring out. I believe two, actually. But this is Colossians 3 and 2. Set your affection on the things above, not on the things of earth. That comes with faith. You're setting your mind on the heavenly promises. The kingdom and what the Father has to offer us. That's going to be everlasting life. That's going to be everything in righteous and divine order. It's not going to be in the control of Esau, where he's tainting the water and there's 30 ingredients in all the food and everything's expensive. We're living paycheck to paycheck and we're struggling. We have all sorts of ailments. Everything's going to be perfect. Everything is going to be perfect. There's going to be such a sweet melody, and we're going to be rejoicing in that day. And we have to set our mind on those things. That's the most important thing. And while we're here, we got to do the work. We got to do the work to the best of our abilities, and it doesn't matter whether we're moving at a slower pace than other brothers. As long as you're doing the work, the Lord sees your efforts. He sees your sincerity. So Lord willing, I pray that this message was edifying. This lesson was edifying. I want to give all glory and honor to Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai Ba'ashim Arakakadash. I want to give double honors to the elders and apostles at Great Millstone who rule well and teach well. Peace and salutation unto the Lord's elect. This is Brother Yawasap. Shalom.